Why do we still talk about Gladiator 25 years later, when we've forgotten hundreds of other action films? The secret lies hidden in plain sight in scenes like this one. The greatest stories aren't just entertaining us, they're operating on three distinct levels simultaneously. And once you learn to see these levels, you'll never experience movies, books, or TV shows the same way again. Today, I'm going to reveal these three storytelling dimensions using Gladiator as our guide. You'll discover why some stories fade from memory while others become part of who we are. Think about the last time a story really stayed with you. Maybe it was a film you couldn't stop thinking about, or a book that changed how you saw the world. What you probably felt, but might not have realized, is how that story was working on multiple levels at once. There's the external story, the plot, the events, the action that we can see and follow. There's the internal story, the emotional and psychological journey the characters experience. And then there's the universal story, the deeper themes and questions about life, society, and human nature. When a story like Gladiator excels at all three levels, it doesn't just entertain us for 2 hours. It becomes part of our cultural conversation for decades. And don't worry, think of it more like discovering the secret ingredients of your favorite meal. Once you know what they are, you can appreciate the flavors even more. The external story is what most people think of when they describe a film or book. It's the sequence of events, the plot, developments, the physical action we see on screen or read on the page. In Gladiator, the external story begins with General Maximus leading Rome's armies to victory in Germania. When Emperor Marcus Aurelius asks Maximus to become the protector of Rome instead of his son Commodus, it sets off a chain of events. Commodus murders his father, orders Maximus and his family killed, and Maximus escapes only to be captured as a slave and forced to become a gladiator. This external journey continues as Maximus rises through the gladiatorial ranks, eventually making it to Rome where he can confront Commodus and seek vengeance for his murdered family. In Gladiator 2, the external story follows Lucius, who witnessed Maximus's death as a child, now living in Numidia and rejecting his Roman heritage. When Rome invades his adopted homeland, he's captured and forced into the very gladiatorial system that Maximus fought within decades earlier. This creates a natural plot progression that honors the original while exploring new territory. But here's what makes the external story more than just stuff that happens. It's carefully structured to create maximum impact. Effective external stories typically follow recognizable patterns. They establish a world, disrupt it with conflict, escalate the stakes, and resolve in a way that feels both surprising and inevitable. We can see this in other films too. Mad Max Fury Road has an external story that's deceptively simple. A chase out into the wasteland followed by a chase back. But this simplicity is precisely what allows the other storytelling levels to shine through the spectacular action. And it's not just action films. In Get Out, the external story revolves around Chris visiting his girlfriend's family for the weekend, only to discover their terrifying true intentions. Director Jordan Peele uses a recognizable social situation to gradually build suspense and revelation. But what happens when the external story fails? We've all experienced films with plot holes, convenient coincidences, or actions that simply don't make sense. When the external story breaks down, audiences become distracted. They start questioning the logic of the world rather than engaging with the characters or themes. It's like trying to build a house on a cracked foundation. It just doesn't work. The external story serves as the vehicle for the other two levels. It's what pulls us through the experience, creating the space for character development and thematic exploration. Without a compelling external story, the other levels struggle to take hold. This moment in Gladiator works brilliantly on the external level. It's the culmination of everything the plot has been building toward.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of Felix legions, loyal servant to the true emperor Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
But as we'll see next, it's also a crucial moment in the internal story of Maximus himself. While the external story shows us what happens, the internal story reveals who it happens to and how they're changed by it. The internal story tracks the psychological and emotional journey of the characters. It's not about the events themselves, but about how those events transform someone's identity, beliefs, and understanding of themselves and their world. What many people don't realize is that storytellers often begin with character, not the plot. They create someone with specific strengths, weaknesses, flaws. Then they design events to challenge those flaws. This is why great stories can feel inevitable, yet surprising. The external events aren't random. They're precisely what the character needs in order to grow. In some cases, to tragically fail to grow. In Gladiator, Maximus begins as the loyal general, dutiful, honorable, and eager to return home to his family. His loyalty to Rome and duty keeps him from the family he loves. When that family is violently taken from him, his internal journey becomes one of survival fueled by vengeance. But something deeper happens as he fights in the arena. Maximus begins to find new purpose, not just revenge, but embodying the Rome that could have been. His internal transformation is reflected in this pivotal moment. This isn't just an external revelation of identity, it's the moment Maximus reclaims who he is internally, moving from anonymous slave to a man with purpose. By the film's end, his journey has evolved from seeking personal vengeance to fighting for the future of the Republic itself. Similarly, in Gladiator 2, Lucius undergoes his own internal transformation from a man who has rejected his Roman past to someone who must reconcile his hatred of Rome with the understanding that he alone might embody the values that could save it. His character journey forces him to confront the question, can you honor someone's legacy while forging your own path? What makes internal stories so compelling is how they tap into our own emotional lives. When we see characters facing their flaws and either overcoming them or being destroyed by them, we recognize our own struggles. We may never be Roman generals or gladiators, but we all understand loss, betrayal, the search for purpose, and the struggle to maintain our identity against forces trying to reshape it. Effective internal stories often follow recognizable emotional patterns. A character begins with a specific worldview or identity that contains a fundamental flaw or limitation. They face challenges that directly test that flaw, they struggle through a period of crisis or transformation, and emerge with a new understanding of themselves. In The Godfather, we see a character journey that resonates because it reflects a universal human experience. Michael Corleone's transformation from someone who declares, "That's my family, Kay, that's not me," to becoming exactly what he once rejected. His internal journey shows how circumstances and choices gradually reshape identity. When characters don't react authentically to events, or when their decisions don't align with their established motivations, audiences struggle to connect emotionally. In films like Transformers: Age of Extinction, characters often make decisions purely to advance the plot or create spectacle, rather than a result of meaningful internal development. Despite impressive visual effects, we feel the characters are being manipulated to serve the external story, rather than evolving naturally. The internal story is where we forge our connection to the narrative. It transforms plot events from spectacle into experience. The reason we're captivated by watching characters face their flaws is because we're constantly doing the same thing in our own lives. Without these compelling character journeys, even the most exciting external stories can feel hollow. This moment in Gladiator completes both the external story, Maximus has achieved his revenge, and his internal journey, as he finds peace and reunites with his family. But it also serves the third and perhaps most enduring level of storytelling, the universal story, which we'll explore next. We've explored what happens and who it happens to. Now we arrive at perhaps the most powerful layer of storytelling, why it matters. The universal story is about the deeper questions, ideas, and truths that a narrative explores. It's where the stories connect to our collective human experience and larger societal concerns. This is the level that often determines whether a story will be remembered for years or forgotten within days. It's what elevates entertainment to art. In Gladiator, the universal story explores profound questions about power, governance, legacy, and what makes a society worth fighting for. When Maximus says what we do in life echoes in eternity, he's voicing one of the film's central themes. Also, throughout the film, we see the contrast between Commodus's Rome, built on spectacle, corruption, and self-interest, and the Rome that Marcus Aurelius and Maximus envision, founded on principle and the common good. This isn't just about characters and plot, it's asking viewers to consider what values should guide our own societies. Gladiator 2 continues this thematic exploration by examining the cost of empire. It asks whether corrupt systems can be reformed from within, or if they must be dismantled entirely. Where the original focused on personal vengeance versus civic duty, the sequel broadens to question whether societies can learn from history or are doomed to repeat cycles of corruption. Unlike the external and internal stories, which follow specific events and characters, the universal story speaks to something timeless. It's why Shakespeare's plays, written over 400 years ago, still resonate today, and why ancient myths continue to be retold. The universal story often explores fundamental questions about human existence. How should power be used? What constitutes justice? How do we find meaning in a chaotic world? What are our responsibilities to each other? These aren't questions with simple answers, they're ongoing conversations about what it means to be human. As another example, we see Parasite. We have a universal story that continues to resonate because it explores economic inequality and class struggle in a way that transcends its specific Korean setting. The director uses a family drama to examine systemic issues that affect societies worldwide. When stories lack a compelling universal layer, they might entertain us temporarily, but they rarely leave a lasting impression. Avatar, The Way of Water, offers some stunning visuals and competent plot and character work, but its thematic exploration remains surface level. Now, the film does touch on ideas about family and environmental protection, but doesn't develop these concepts in ways that challenge or enlighten viewers. We consume these films like fast food. Immediately satisfying, but quickly forgotten. The universal story continues to work on us long after we've experienced the narrative. It's the part that makes us see ourselves and our world differently. Without this thematic resonance, even stories with exciting plots and compelling characters can feel ultimately empty. This final image from Gladiator, Maximus running his hand through the wheat fields as he returns home, works on all three levels we've discussed. Externally, it completes his journey. Internally, it represents his character finding peace. But universally, it speaks to timeless human desires for home, justice, and for reunion with those we've lost. We've explored each storytelling level individually, but the true magic happens when all three work together seamlessly. The most powerful scenes in storytelling are often those that advance the external plot, develop character, and explore thematic ideas simultaneously. So let's take this pivotal scene from Gladiator and examine it on all three levels. Externally, the scene does advance the plot. Maximus reveals his identity to Commodus, dramatically raising the stakes and setting up their final confrontation. Internally, it represents Maximus reclaiming his identity and purpose. No longer a nameless slave, but a man with a mission that gives meaning to his suffering. And universally, it explores the themes of justice, identity, and the power of truth in a corrupt world. And the crowd's reaction shows how a single person standing for truth can inspire others. This multi-layered approach is what separates merely good stories from truly great ones. When a single moment can work on all three levels, the impact is exponentially more powerful. Consider the hospital scene from The Dark Knight, where the Joker visits Harvey Dent. In just one sequence, we see the external event of Harvey's transformation into Two-Face, the internal completion of his fall from hero to villain, and the universal theme explored of how chaos can corrupt even the most principled people when they experience profound loss. Christopher Nolan masterfully advances all three storytelling levels simultaneously. And here we see a film where external spectacle overpowers any meaningful character development or thematic exploration. Jurassic World delivers impressive dinosaur action and a functional plot, but its characters rarely evolve in meaningful ways, and its themes about human hubris merely echo the original without adding any real new perspective. The result is momentarily entertaining, but ultimately forgettable compared to the original Jurassic Park, which excelled on all 3 storytelling levels. And let's compare that with a scene from Gladiator 2. When Lucius finally confronts Rome's leadership, the scene works on all 3 levels by both advancing the plot towards its climax, completing his character's journey of reconciliation with his heritage, and exploring the universal theme of whether power can be wielded without corruption.
The gates of hell are open night and day. Smooth is the descent, and easy is the way.
We compare this to a single layered movie, and this multi-layer approach gives the moment much more emotional and intellectual impact. As viewers and readers, understanding these 3 storytelling levels transforms how we experience media. We move from passive consumption to active engagement. We notice when a story is firing on all cylinders, and when it's missing crucial elements. We've explored the 3 stories that every great narrative tells: the external story of events, the internal story of character transformation, and the universal story of thematic meaning. But understanding these layers doesn't just make us better analysts of film and literature. It transforms our relationship with the stories we consume. We begin to recognize why certain narratives resonate deeply in us, while others, despite impressive spectacle, feel hollow. These storytelling dimensions extend beyond entertainment. They affect how we process news, how we understand history, and even how we construct the stories of our own lives. When we recognize a character facing their flaws, we might see reflections in our own struggles. When a story explores questions of justice and purpose, it invites us to consider these themes in our world and personal experience. Great stories like Gladiator don't just entertain us. They reveal something about ourselves. They connect us to a shared human experience that spans cultures and generations. The next time you watch a film or read a book that truly moves you, take a moment to consider how it's working on all these levels. You might discover new dimensions to the stories you thought you knew well. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and we hope to put out new videos soon. Until then, I'm Alexander Turner, and this has been CultureCast.